Hey everybody, what's going on? Welcome back to yet another episode of Form Check Friday, the video series where we take your viewer submitted videos, we pull them up on this screen behind me, and we try to pick them apart and offer you guys some suggestions on how you can be a little bit more efficient as lifters. It does help if you guys submit a little bit of context. That actually will increase your chances of getting chosen. There have been a few where it's a blurry video, there's no context, it's a single, and maybe it doesn't get chosen. But if you can submit your videos to formcheckfriday@gmail.com, we're going to take a random number generator. We're going to choose 5 every week. We're going to pick them and pop them up here behind me, and I'll do my best to pick them apart and hopefully help everybody who sends videos in. Now, that being said, we have just under 950 emails right now, so the odds or chances of getting picked are only slightly better than winning the lottery. But if you do get picked, that's pretty cool. So without further ado, we are going to get into it. So our first one comes from Z. I'm going to call this person, I can't pronounce the name, and I'm just not going to hurt myself trying. So Zahidya. Anyways, we're going to take a look at some squats here. So this is his squat video. He's doing this movement for about 3 months, started at about 20 kilos, and now he's doing 70 kilos thanks to his friend. Just doing for overall strength and to improve his lower body. I've never had an issue about knees. Would be appreciated if we could comment on it. All right, so first off, very, very deep, which is good. You got a ton of flexibility. You're able to get a nice long range of motion. Most of these are kind of inadvertently paused. Not sure if that's your intent or not, but I would maybe work on trying to get a little bit more out of the stretch reflex so that you can move a little bit more weight. If that's comfortable depth for you, that's fine. This first rep, really, really good. As we move on, if we watch kind of through the feet there, we can see that we get a little bit unstable. Maybe just this last rep was what I was seeing. Yeah, see there in that last rep, we can kind of see as you descend, we're kind of coming up on the heels and just a little bit around on the toes. So one thing to be conscious of when you're squatting is to try to keep nice even foot pressure. We want to distribute that weight nice and evenly between 3 points of contact, or generally what we talk about and what we think about. So we're talking about the heel, we're talking about just under the big toe and just under the pinky toe. So those 3 points of contact in the feet, very important for distributing the load evenly so that we can lift most efficiently, be more balanced. Other than that, things actually look pretty good. We're maybe a little bit overextended in terms of your back position. So as you go to initiate your squat, you can see that we're going into a fair bit of extension there. And one thing that I would try and play with is trying to get a little bit more of a neutral sort of back position. And this can be achieved by thinking about pulling down on the ribs here. Go ahead and sort of let your upper body down, maybe look down a little bit, bring that chest down a little bit without going into sort of flexion here in the low back. Hopefully that makes sense with all those drawings on the screen, but that's another thing to try. Now, some people are gonna squat much better with this extension, and if you haven't had any issues, I would say that you're probably okay, but I think it's worth investigating, seeing if that feels sort of inherently more comfortable to you, and check that out. So other than that, I think you're at a great place for beginning your journey into the squat, and wish you the best of luck with it. All right, we're gonna move on to our next video here. Next one comes from Jesse Smith. Now this is a deadlift. He says this is the last 2 sets of 495 for 4 sets of 2 at an RPE 9. Previously, he said he's had issues with his hips shooting up. He thinks he's got it under control, but he's noticed on his heavier sets, he now has some rounding in his back. He's currently 230 pounds. Thanks, he loves the channel. Well, thanks, Jesse. We appreciate that a lot. And I think this video is sideways. So just give me a second, I'm gonna figure out how to fix that. So I think we've got this video about as good as we're gonna be able to get it. And I think I can kind of see what I need to from this. So number one, I think in terms of the back rounding and that being a thing, you're gonna probably need to unload the bar weight. You're gonna need to take some time and figure out how to be a flat back deadlifter, because right now you're quite strong. You're pulling almost 500 pounds for a bunch of doubles with some left in the tank. So if being a flat back deadlifter is something you aspire to, then you're gonna have to unload the bar until we get to the point where you can achieve and maintain a flat back, and then treat that as a totally separate lift and bring that up on its own scale. If you're okay with the rounding of the back, you're not running into any injuries, you're not running into any sort of hang-ups in terms of your progression. Now, again, I will repeat, we say this all the time on the live stream, but flexion is not necessarily a mechanic for injury. If you aren't running into any issues with it, then maybe the round back deadlift is just kind of for you. Maybe that feels better. Maybe you're stronger, more efficient in that pattern. Now, that being said, I think the other mechanics of your lift are quite good, actually. You're pushing the floor away, doing a good job of staying over the bar until we get to the point where we want to bring the hips and extend the back through. So overall, aside from the rounding of the back, we can maybe do a little bit better job. We can kind of see on this rep, one of the things that we're starting to do is we're starting to really kind of see those shoulders creep forward. So that'd be something I would work on, is trying to keep those lats nice and tight, so that we're able to, keep that bar nice and close to the body as we progress through the lift. Outside of that, yeah, I think things look pretty darn good. Unless, of course, you are, your goal is to be a flat back deadlifter, in which case, like I said, probably gonna require some pretty intensive unloading, some pretty intensive sort of rethinking and relearning to kind of repattern that movement, but it's definitely doable. All right, our next one here comes from Al Murtada. So he or she is a novice lifter, 5'7" tall, and they're 134 pounds. They've been lifting for they're lifting just over 130 pounds for set 5. As you can see in the video, they don't use leg drive because the bench they're in is low, and it's the only one at the gym, but they're trying to be as tight as they can, and wants to know how their form is looking. All right, Al Murtada, hopefully I'm pronouncing your name correctly. All right, let's see what's going on here. Honestly, that looks pretty good. So obviously some equipment limitations here, right? Like having to unrack from that high up means that he's not able to, I guess, get his back as tight as otherwise could. But he's got his buddy here to give him a lift off, so that he's not having to push his shoulders out of position much further to get the bar where he needs to go. I would maybe experiment with a bit of a wider grip if you can get one on that bar. I would also maybe work from the mid pins, try a few sets there. I would work on a lighter touch. So right there, you can see the bar's kind of sinking into you. I would try to just think about touching your t-shirt. Try to think about bringing that chest up to the bar. Keep the weight of the bar in your hands the whole time. Don't let that weight hit your chest, right? We want to be in control of the weight throughout the movement, and try to create a nice light touch. Because when that bar, when you loosen up to let that bar touch, we're getting a lot of slowing down on those concentrics. On the concentric on the way up. So with these earlier reps, this first rep, you actually do a really good job of using a bit of a lighter touch, a little bit more control, and we can see those reps are quicker. Now, whether that's because they're tighter, because they're at the beginning of the set, I mean, you could argue either way, but I think the big thing here is that when we loosen, that bar is actually drifting out this way a little bit. And what we want to stay tight so we can bring the bar back over the shoulders, which is something you're doing pretty well, actually, except in that very bottom of the range of motion. You're struggling to get that bar into the right bar path because of that looseness and that slight bounce down towards your feet. So that'd be the biggest things that I would work on. Hopefully that helps you out. All right, let's get to some more of these. The next one's from Isaiah Williams. So he says, "Hey, my name is Isaiah, and I'm a 19-year-old who's been lifting since June 2018, a little less than a year, at the time of this email anyways. Weighs 190, recently switched to Sumo because he hurt his low back on an AMRAP conventional. Video is triple with 65% second deadlift day of the week. Isaiah. All right. Let's see what we got. Alrighty. So 65% for a triple is very, very light. We should be able to essentially have perfect technique on this. It looks pretty good. I think you could create a lot more tension and be back a little bit further in terms of your shin angle, because right here, the knee's out in front of the bar, and if you watch as we start to lift, we actually drift back in the knee. So can everybody kind of see what I'm talking about? Right here. Starts really far forward, drifts back as the bar comes in. And I think we end up in a better position as the bar comes off the floor. But I think more weight on the heels, you know, try to get yourself back just a little bit more and pull yourself into that bar a little harder before you start the lift. Yeah, so bring those knees back, because each and every rep, we're starting really knees forward. There. Start really knees forward, and then as the bar comes, you can see that big swing, especially it's very evident on this one. We start with knees forward and then it pops right back. So let's try to get those knees into that back position where they're a little further back to start with, so that we can create our wedge, we can create our tension in that position and not have to shift as we start the bar off the floor. I think that's the biggest thing. Upper back position looks pretty okay. We're doing a good job of staying neutral with the back and sort of keeping the shoulders in line, keeping the lats nice and tight, keeping the bar close to the body. A lot of things are looking really good. I just think we're starting a little bit too far forward on the feet and too far knees forward. So let's learn to get back, load up that posterior a little bit more, and hopefully that'll feel a little better for you. Our last one here is some bench presses from Mitchell Watson. Now, Mitchell's from New Zealand, so shout outs to all my Kiwis out there. I've always felt my bench is the weakest of my three main lifts, even though I have a very good chest development. Size-wise, the strength never changes. Here's a set of 3 from the side and another from 3 from the front view. Please help. So we have, I believe, the front view here. Now let's take a look. I might actually download the other one so we can take a look at the side. So very loose on the chest. We can actually see the bar dip. So we come down into the pause, and then if we watch the bar come down, pause, and then it dips before he uses really aggressive leg drive to push it back up. So the legs, there's like this, he's like stomping his left foot, which is kind of interesting. I think more leg drive throughout the lift, less relaxing and then relying on leg drive to start the press. Let's see this from the side here. I think we're gonna see a very similar story. So decent on the unrack, doing a pretty okay job with the upper back tightness. So I think, yeah, again, like the head kind of came up on that rep. We're just not very consistent, right? So I think you're coming down, we're pretty loose, like the bar's bouncing around on the chest. So we need to learn to control that bottom portion of the movement a little bit better. We need to try to be a little bit tighter in that bottom portion of the movement. It looks like we're loosening up in a couple different ways. So again, keep the weight of the bar in your hands. Don't let it sink into your chest. Keep your leg drive on consistently throughout the set, and think about pulling your chest up to meet the bar on the way down, during the pause, and as you press, as opposed to letting the bar sink into you like that. Hopefully that gives you a little bit of something to think about, and we'll go from there, Mitchell. That, my friends, is going to be the end of Form Check Friday for today. If you all are interested in submitting your videos, go ahead and submit those to formcheckfriday@gmail.com, and hopefully you could be on the next episode. We actually just put out a really great video on self-talk on some sports psychology topics, so I highly recommend everybody go check that video out, and have great days. Thanks for tuning in. Hit that like button if you liked it, share it with your friends if you think it's necessary, and hit that subscribe button to see more great powerlifting content. We'll see you guys next time.